People always ask me, how did you and John meet? So I have to tell them this story. It's both kind of funny and sweet. When I was 16, I met him through a friend. It was 1970. And it was in the summer. I had just turned 16 and he was 17. And I had a friend who had lived down the street from me in Centralia for many years. And then she moved to Chehalis. And she moved over next to the Staguars. And I had not seen her for probably several months. And she called me up one day. I talked to her on the phone, but she called me up and said, "You got to come and see my new house. You got to come over to Chehalis and see me." And I said, "Well, yeah, I would. I'd love to, but you know how my mom is. We're Catholic, and we have to go to church on Sunday at the Catholic church." And she said, "Well, just you put your mom on the phone, and I'll put my mom on the phone, and I'll have her talk her into it." And I said, "Okay." So she puts her mom on the phone, and I hear just one side of the conversation, of course. And my mom is saying, "Well, yeah, you know, we're Catholic." And I thought, I knew it. And she said, "If she stays the weekend and she comes home on Sunday, you got to make sure she goes to the Catholic church." And so I guess my friend's mom said that she knew the Staguars were Catholic, and so we would go to church with the Staguar, and she would make sure. And so it was all fixed, and of course I had to do lots of work to make sure that I was good enough to go for this privilege for the whole weekend to stay at my friend's house. Anyway, my friend was always talking about her boyfriend, John, who was so handsome, dark, muscular, and she just, said all this stuff. And I thought, well, of course she thinks, everybody always thinks their boyfriend is so good looking and awesome and everything. And so she said, "Oh, wear some clothes, bring some nice clothes so that we can go to church. And then, of course, bring, something comfortable. We're going to go to the drive-in. We're going to double date." And I said, "Oh, who am I going out with?" And she said, "Well, my brother, of course." And I knew that he kind of liked me. He was really nice. I really liked her brother, but there was nothing, no chemistry, as they would say. But he was nice, and I wanted to go to the drive-in. So we thought, we'd double date, and that would be okay. And so I went over, and the first thing she did was take me over to the Staguars so that I could meet Mrs. Staguar and Mr. Staguar, because we were going to go to church with them. So I did that. We walked up the pink steps and knocked on the door. She loved pink. And she came out, and my friend Arlene introduced me. And she said, "This is my friend Lydia, and she is going to stay with me the weekend. And they're Catholic, and she has to go to the Catholic church on Sunday. Would that be okay if we went to church with you guys?" And of course, Mrs. Staguar said, "Oh, sure, that would be wonderful." And the first thing she said after that was, "Are you hungry?" She was always trying to fatten me up. And so I said, "Well, not really." I said, "But Arlene said we're going to dinner, to a barbecue, so we don't want to eat much." And so we went in, and I think we had some pie or cookies or something, and then we talked for a little while, and then we went home to her house, where she had her parents were there, but John and Randy were not there. And then we went over to the friend's house where the barbecue was going to be, and they had children, and they were younger, like her little sister. She had a little sister that was like 8 or 10, and they were all playing outside while the parents were cooking and making potato salad and stuff. And so we just played outside, and then after a while, John and Randy showed up. And I was playing Frisbee with these little kids, and then John and Randy came up, and I looked and I saw John, and he was everything she said in this phone call that we had had. He had a white t-shirt on and muscles bulging out, and tight Levi's and boots and black hair, and he just was just exactly what she described. And I just was instantly attracted to him. And so she introduced us, and then we shortly after started eating. And then we went to the show afterwards, and the drive-in, and it was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That was the name of the movie. And so I kind of talked through the whole movie because I wanted to turn around and look in the back seat. Randy and I sat in the front seat of the car. It was a little car, like a VW Volkswagen, but it was not a VW Bug. It was about that size. It was a foreign car. And John and Arlene sat in the back seat, and Randy and I sat in the front seat. And I turned around the whole night so that I could look at John and pretend like I was talking to Arlene. And in the moonlight, he was so handsome. I couldn't take my eyes off him. So then, after the show, we went home to Arlene's house, and they got out of the car, John and Arlene, and I thought they went in the house, but evidently they didn't. She went in the house and he went home to his house. And Randy sat in the car for a while trying to get up the nerve to kiss me, but he never did. Probably 15 minutes. And so I went in and we went to bed, and then that night, or the next day, we just played baseball, and they had a nice big backyard, so we just played baseball and maybe some more Frisbee or something. And then we played Yahtzee, and I remember it just being, kind of fun, because John came over and he was there the whole weekend. He was around always. By the way, when we were playing Frisbee with those kids, I was playing Frisbee and playing with those kids. Later, John told me when he saw me, he thought, now that's the kind of girl I want to marry. And I said, oh, really? You thought that when you first met me? Why is that? And he said, oh, you just were so carefree and happy-go-lucky. And he said, and I just wanted somebody like that. And then we went in the house after that, and John stayed there, and we ate dinner. So I remembered what we had for dinner, and because you always remember, a girl always remembers the first date, the first time she saw someone, whether it was her date or not, that she loved, what she was wearing, and what they ate. We had barbecued steak and mashed potatoes. Arlene and I peeled the potatoes, and corn, and I think apple pie. I even remember where we were sitting. It was a good-sized table, and I was sitting in the middle of the table, and my friend was sitting next to me, Arlene, and then John was sitting next to Arlene, and her sister and her sister's boyfriend were down at the end and around the corner, and then Mrs. Robinson was sitting across from Arlene, and then Mr. Robinson was sitting across from me, directly across, and then her little sister was sitting at the other end of the table on my left. And Randy was sitting next to his dad. And so we were sitting there eating, and I'm left-handed, so I was putting my knife in my left hand so that I could, cut my meat with the strong hand. And I'm using my fork to stab it, to hold on to it. And I'm cutting my meat, and all of a sudden it slips and it flies through the air and it lands exactly into Mr. Robinson's plate. And everybody just goes, they just stand there, sit there, and they can't believe it happened. And Mr. Robinson says, well, thank you, Lydia, but if I'd have wanted your steak, I'd have asked for it. And so he picks the steak up and hands it back to me, and everybody starts laughing. And Arlene's laughing so hard, and she had just taken a bite of steak and mashed potatoes, and now she's choking. And so she gets up and she goes to the kitchen, choking, and leans over the sink, trying to cough this out. And of course, John goes in there, and we all go in there. We're all going in, following her in there while she's choking. And John puts his arms around her and does the Heimlich maneuver, and the steak and stuff pops out, and she's okay. And we go back and sit down, and I try to cut my steak again, real careful, and everything's fine. And later on, John says, you know, don't you, when I fell in love with you? It was when I saw your steak flying through the air and land in Mr. Robinson's plate. And it was like, oh boy. It kind of reminds me now of Pretty Woman, where the snail shell or whatever it was flew across the room and the waiter caught it. Anyway, so that was the first crazy thing that happened. Okay, so the next morning was Sunday morning, and I had to go to the Catholic Church with the Staguars. So we went over there, walked over, and at the right time, and we all went in the same car, and they had a bigger car, and we the church was like an hour long, and then we came home, and that's when I think we played Yahtzee. Yeah. And so we just kind of hung out, and then it was time for me to go home. And so Randy took me home with Arlene, and John came along too, and we went to my house, and he saw where I lived. And so they kind of just dropped me off. They didn't come in. They just dropped me off and said goodbye and everything. And then a few days later, now this was in July that I met him, and I had turned 16 in June. But we went down to the school, and we were signing up for our classes and everything, the high school, which was about a mile down the road. And my brother and I walked down there. He was a little bit younger than I was, year and 4 months or something like that. And so we walked down there. We were both going to that school, and so we signed up for our new classes and everything. And on the way back, we were probably halfway home, and this car pulls up beside me, and I'm aware that there's a person there, and they slowed down. And so I look over, and I look inside the car, and it's John. Now, John didn't have a car when just a few days ago, before that, when I met him. But he says, I just bought a car, and I was just driving around, and I remembered that you live down here. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of strange. He lives in Chehalis. And so anyway, he says, you want to ride home? And I said, sure. So we both got in the car, my brother and I, and he took us home. And we sat outside in the yard for a while and visited. And my mom came out, and we introduced her to him, and she wasn't real excited that he was sitting there, because I told her that this was Arlene's boyfriend. So she was wondering what he was doing there, I think, without Arlene. Anyway, he didn't stay too long, maybe an hour, 40 minutes. And then he left. And then some time went by, and school started, and he showed up at the school a couple times. And so he took me home, and a couple times he took me over to the A&W. And he was acting like a friend, and I talked to Arlene, and then one day she said, I asked her how John was doing, how her and John were, and she said, Well, I don't see him much anymore. I think he has a new girlfriend. Well, we had never talked about being boyfriend and girlfriend, and he had never done anything like kiss me. And so I just still knew this was Arlene's boyfriend. But I wondered why he was always coming over to the high school. I mean, I felt like he was attracted to me, and I didn't want to discourage him really. So he came over a few times to the school, and he offered to take me home. And he knew people from my high school too, so he would talk to them. There was a few people that I think he met them somewhere. And so they went to my school, so he talked to these people too. But then he'd always find his way to me, and he would come when it was close to getting out of school, and he'd offer to take me home and ask me if I was hungry and take me to get a hamburger or something. And at the A&W, which was just down the road from my house, right next to the park. So I would say sure. And so we'd go for a hamburger or something, and then he'd drop me off, and I would, just go home. So one day I called her, Arlene, and I said, "So how are you and John doing?" And she said, "Well, I don't see him very much anymore, so I think he might have a new girlfriend." And I said, "Oh, how do you feel about that? Are you pretty upset?" And she said, "No, it wasn't going anywhere." And, she was shy and he was shy too. And so I could see how it wasn't going anywhere because I wasn't shy. I talked all the time, probably more than he did. Definitely more than he did. And anyway, I just asked her if it upset her if he had another girlfriend. And she said, "No, because I just think we weren't meant for each other." And so I said, "Well, how would you feel if I dated him?" Because he's come to the high school a couple times, my high school, because he knows people there, and he's given me a ride home. I haven't, kissed him or anything, but I think he might like me. And I said, "But if you say, you don't want me to, that's fine." Because I had a boyfriend that was in the service, and he told me I could date while he was gone in the Army. So, I didn't have to date John. And so anyway, she said, "No, you go ahead. If you like him and he likes you, you can date him." She said, "I don't care." And so I said, "Okay." And I said, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yeah." So anyway, I continued to be friends with her, and I continued to date John. And then my parents came to a place where they didn't really want me to date John. They met him, and my mom thought that he was just too, she thought he was older than I was because he looked older. And I always looked young for my age, and John always looked old for his age. So I had to kind of sneak around and pretend like I wasn't dating him, like I was dating my brother's friend Sam. And Sam agreed to this, and so Sam the funny thing is Sam had the same kind of car as John. They both had 62 Impalas. They both had the same year and the same kind of car, but one was tan and one was blue. And so what would happen is Sam would come and pick me up and pretend like he was my date. I even remember one time he put a necklace on me that I had, and I had him put it on me in the back, fix it, and just act like we were dating. And then we'd leave and go to the end of the road, and I'd get out of Sam's car and into John's car. And then we would go on our date. And when we'd come home, since they had the same kind of car, but it would be dark, like right before midnight or 11:30 or 11 or whatever it was, Can't remember the exact time, but it would always be before midnight, so I didn't turn into a pumpkin. And so anyway, I would stay in John's car because their cars were the same, and in the dark you couldn't tell the difference. So anyway, my parents would just look out there and they would see this Chevy Impala pull in, and I would get out and then I would come in the house. So after Arlene said I could date John, and that was okay, we started seeing each other more often, and he would take me. Sometimes he'd buy me a hamburger or something after school, and we'd go to the park and eat. And I remember one time we were walking around the end of the lake, and I was going to sit down. Sometimes I wore dresses to school, and he sat down, and I was going to sit down on the grass. It was kind of grass, but there was like gravel and dirt and stuff, and I was going to sit there beside him and eat, and he said, "Oh no, don't do that." He said, "You'll get your dress dirty." So he told me to sit in his lap. So I sat in his lap, and before I ate my hamburger, he grabbed my face and turned me around and kissed me. And it was like, that was our first kiss at the end of the lake. And I always tell the kids, when we would drive by the park, we could see on the freeway the end of the lake, and I'd say, "You know where your dad kissed me for the first time? Right down there at the end of the lake." So they always knew this. And so it was just a common thing, you know, and they as years went on, they'd say, "Yeah, we know where Dad kissed you for the first time, right down there at the end of the lake." So then we continued to date, and my parents, they started to just accept the fact that I was dating him. Of course, they didn't want me to date only one person, so that's why sometimes I would date Sam. And at that time, I think I was 17. I turned 17, so we dated for a year, and then I started having some problems at home. Yeah, I ran away from home a couple times. And one time I actually rode my bike all the way over to Chehalis when I was upset. And your dad had bought me this little troll doll necklace. I still have it. Anyway, and it was kind of gold with green hair. And they were really in style back then. And he handed it to me. I was sitting in his car, and he said, "Here, I got something for you." And I looked at it and I just burst out laughing, because it wasn't the type of thing that you want your boyfriend to give you. You want him to give you, you know, jewelry or something, but not a little golden troll doll on a chain with a green hair. So we were parked up on at the end of the road where he used to live when he grew up, of Graff Road. And he said, "If you were 19 and if I was 20, and if I asked you to marry me, would you say yes?" And I thought, is that a proposal? That was a weird proposal. And I didn't know what to say, because I wasn't even 18, I was only 17. So what he was saying is he wanted to marry me, but he knew we were both too young. And so I said, "I don't know, maybe. It's hard to say because I'm only 17. You can ask me again when I'm 19." And so he didn't say anything anymore. And then some time went by, and after I turned 18, he asked me to marry him. And he bought me this engagement ring, which has 3 rings on it, because it was the 3rd summer. And we'd been married almost 50 years when he passed away. Just a few weeks short, 6 weeks short of 50 years. We would have been celebrated our 50th anniversary. He was an amazing man, amazing husband, amazing father.
and I'll never forget him. And I have lots of stories to remember him by, to share with all my friends.
Before I met you, I was so alone. I'd pray every night that God would send me a wife just like you. I knew you were the one for me when I saw you playing so tenderly with those children on that day. Oh, 50 years with you is not enough, but I thank the Lord for giving me the chance to love. No, 50 years with you was not enough, but in those 50 years we learned the power of true love. Through the years you were there for me. Together we raised a family of our own. You and I. Together we learned how to weather the storms. When tragedy struck, we placed our faith in the Lord. You and I. 50 years with you is not enough, but I thank the Lord for giving me the chance to love. Oh, 50 years with you was not enough, but in those 50 years we learned the power of true love.
Somebody asked me one day, who's your hero? What is a hero? Is it someone who saves the day? Who will be there when your skies are gray? Or a poor man you still wanna share when a rich man doesn't take time to care? And everyone else looks at what they don't have, they look at what they got. When you're sad they weep too, shows how much they care about you. guess you've always been. Mom, you've always been able to bend, though you've never really seen the end. Dad, your life's been sad, but you're strong and you help people, help them carry on. What would you do if a man called to you on the street? Can you help me? I've nothing to eat. Would you take him to dinner with you? Everybody watching too. Can you handle the smell of the street or the sores on his feet? Could you give him a hug? Would you show brotherly love? Could you Mom, I bet you didn't know you were my hero. Dad, I guess you've always been. Mom, you've always been able to bend, though you've never really seen the end. Dad, your life's been sad, but you're strong and you help people, help them carry on. Help them carry on. Ooh, help them carry on.
I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what song I'll sing, but I know you'll be beside me. When I get to feeling blue, I just stop and think of you and everything that matters. The only things in life that matter are the things that shine the light upon the land. The only things in life that matter are the simple things that children understand. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what song we'll sing, but I know we'll be together, and we will sing from up above things of faith and hope and love, things that last forever. The only things in life that matter are the things that shine the light I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what song we'll sing, but I know we'll sing it together. We will sing from up above, things of faith and hope and love, those things that last forever.
So one memory that stands out about my husband is when we were dating. My parents really didn't want me to see him all the time. They thought I was dating him too much, and they didn't want us to get too close and something happen, like, you know, I get pregnant or something. And so they wanted me to date other people. So of course I pretended like I was dating some of my brother's friends, and people like that would help me. And one day, my mother and father were going to go see my sister who had a new baby and see the new baby. But I was sick, so I couldn't go. I had a bad cold. And they said, well, you shouldn't go, you know, because of the new baby and my sister Janie. And so I had to stay home all by myself. So I thought, well, this would be a good time to have John come over. So I called up John, and I sometimes I would ride my bike down to the there was a restaurant, and inside or right by the restaurant was a phone booth. In them days they had phone booths, and so I would go down there, and for 10 cents I'd call up and I'd call John's house because I wasn't allowed to call him. So anyway, I told him, I said, my parents are going to visit my sister who had a new baby in Tacoma, and they'll be gone for hours, so you can come over. So anyway, we planned this, and my parents left, and they took the other kids. They were my younger brothers and sisters. They went to see the new baby. And he parked out back because he wanted to make sure he could go out the back door and get away if he needed to. He came in and he was sitting in this chair. I think I made him something to eat. I went in the kitchen, maybe made a sandwich or something. And then he was sitting in this rocking chair for, you know, I don't know, half an hour or whatever. And I was sitting on this footstool right beside him and talking. And of course I was sick, so, you know, I didn't really want to kiss him and get him sick. So he was sitting on in this rocking chair, which was my mom's favorite. And it was a patchwork rocking chair with wooden, you know, it had upholstery and doilies on the handles or the arms of the chair, and a little footstool that was upholstered in the same patchwork material. And it was real cute, and he was sitting in that and I was sitting on the footstool. And then I started to cough and my nose started to run, and so I got up and I walked over to this desk that had a box of Kleenex on it and by the window, and I happened to gaze out the window, and here's my parents, and it's only been a couple hours, and I see my parents coming down their car coming down the road towards the house, down the driveway, and I go, oh my gosh, my parents are coming. They're back. They're coming back already. And I turn around to John, and he's gone, and the rocking chair's just rocking, and the back door's open. He just took out that fast that I didn't even notice. I didn't even see him get up and leave. But I noticed later, I went to shut the back door, and then I came back in, and I sat down in that chair, and I noticed that the doily that was on the arm was gone. It's like, oh my gosh. And I looked around on the floor and all over, and I couldn't see the doily. So I went out back, I looked on the porch, I didn't see it, and I thought, dang, it must have got hooked on the button of his shirt or something. And so anyway, then my parents came and I pretended like everything was normal and asked all about the new baby and stuff. And so, and my dad, he always had a camera with him, and it was a movie camera in them days. He took movies of everything, so he had movies of the new baby and stuff. So I thought, oh, well, I'll get to see it, you know, next time. And for now, we have the movies and everything. And so anyway, then the next day or a couple days later, I talked to John on the phone, and I told him that the doily was missing. He goes, oh yeah, it's hooked on the button of my shirt, because he had a long sleeve shirt on and the cuff had buttons on it. And he said, I'll bring it back next time I see you. And I said, okay, no problem. Anyway, my mom sat in that chair that night later, and she noticed, of course, that one of the doilies was missing. And I just pretended like, you know, it must have fallen around somehow. And so, you know, I didn't say anything. I just acted like, you know, oh, well, it got knocked off or whatever. We'll find it. Look down the cushions. That's what I did. I picked up the cushions and looked down the side of them, of the chair, and then, you know, I didn't find it. And so nobody said anything, and I think she took the other one off and put it somewhere. And then it was a long time before John brought it back. I think I saw him, maybe he came to the school or something, and he had it in his pocket, and he said, oh, by the way, here's that doily. And he hands it to me, and I go, oh, gee, everybody's been wondering where that is. So I took it home, and I was kind of messing around over by the wood box, which was a couple feet from the chair that we always sat in near the fireplace. And there were papers that we had on the wood box so that we could build the fire with. And I kind of stuffed it in there. And one day I picked it up, I moved the papers and I picked up the doily, and I said, oh, here's that doily. It just miraculously appeared. And so I put it back on there. And my mom says, where did you find it? And I said, oh, it was over here by the papers and by the wood box. And she said, oh, well, it must have got somehow mixed in with that. So she put it back on. And my little sister kind of looked funny, and she sat in that chair, and she goes, so why does this doily smell like Brute? And I went like this. And nobody heard her because nobody said anything, but I heard her. And she knew. She was 6 years younger than me, but she still knew something, because John always wore tons of Brute. And we had this standing joke that when John would be coming to pick me up for a date, they would say, I think John's coming, I smell Brute. Brute is this aftershave or cologne that John used to wear. And it was really big in the 70s. You can still buy it. But he wore tons of Brute. And I still love it today. And so he wore so much that they could smell him. No. Okay, so they could smell him coming. They would see him coming down the road.
You could smell him from a mile away.
You could smell him a mile away because he wore so much Brute. But they would see his car and then coming, and they would say that. So that's the doily story.
Perfect.
This is what John is doing with all the free wood he got. See all this good free wood? He's done all this beautiful work up here. Pencil.
You'll have to spank me. Will you spank me softly, honey?
I'll have to castigate you.
I smell the smell of something that smells smelly.
Yeah. I smell a smelly smell.
I smell a smelly smell of something that smells smelly.
Yeah.
Is that an orchid? Is that an orchid?
Gardenia.
Oh, gardenia.
Focus on a gardenia.
There's no place.
I got a kitchen oven over here. You'd stay here longer than I could handle. That's for sure. What is with this? Honey, put this one to go here.
I'm not scratching me. That looks stupid.
It looks like a cow.
That looks stupid.
He's hiding between your legs. He's snuggling in. I just think it's all about choice. Time to throw the baby out on his little fuzzy ears.
I'll just do that to them and yeah, go get your present. Go open it. Daddy's got to go to work. You gotta hurry up.
What are you doing, Dad?
There's a little baby hummingbird stuck up in the skylight.
That's weird. What is going on? It thinks that that's the sky and that it's trapped, and it doesn't realize that it needs to fly down. Poor baby. Don't crush it. I know. Here, show the camera.
Wait till I get out.
Okay. That
When she drinks, she poops.
And with the good, now with the bad. Here, let's go outside and change this quick.
Go ahead.
Ready? Grabbed Winston's mouth.
Wow. Could win a pole climbing contest, that's for sure. Let's go all the way up.
Yep.
Whoa, that was quick.
Wow.
Let's go higher. Woo!
didn't take long.
Happy 47th anniversary. 47 years, wow. It's a long time. Congratulations.
We're here to celebrate this 25-year union and to support the renewal of your vows. You're making that statement that I would do all over again if I could. And we want to thank you, myself and all of your family members and friends, for letting us be a part of this really important time in your lives. Well, John, 25 years ago, you pledged your loyalty to Lydia as your wedded wife, to live together after God's laws in the holy estate of matrimony. You promised to love her, comfort her, honor and keep her in sickness and in health. And you further promised that forsaking all others, you would keep yourself only unto her so long as you both should live. During these 25 years, you've been faithful to that pledge, especially since you served the Lord. And now again at the beginning of your 26th year together, in the presence of God and in the presence of your family and friends here, will you renew these vows, pledging yourself to continue your devotion to her as long as you both shall live?
I will.
Yeah. Lydia, 25 years ago, you pledged your loyalty to John as your wedded husband, to live together after God's laws in the holy state of matrimony. You promised to follow him, to serve him, to love, honor, and keep him in sickness and in health. You further promised that forsaking all others, you would keep yourself only unto him so long as you both should live. During these 25 years, you've been faithful to your pledge as the Lord has given you that strength. And so now at the beginning of your 26th year of life together, in the presence of God, in the presence of your family and friends, will you renew these vows, pledging yourself to continue your devotion to him as long as you both shall live?
I will.
And if you just repeat after me, with the giving of this ring,
With the giving of this ring,
I renew my vow of love and loyalty
I renew my vow of love and loyalty
with sincere affection
with sincere affection
and with all my worldly goods.
and with all my worldly good.
I continue to give to you
I continue to give to you
in the name of the Father
in the name of the Father,
and of the Son
and of the Son,
and of the Holy
and
Spirit.
of the Holy Spirit.
And repeat after me, with the giving of this ring,
With the giving of this ring,
I renew my vow of love and devotion
I renew my vow of love and devotion
with sincere affection
with sincere affection
and with all my worldly goods.
and with all my worldly goods.
I continue to give to you
I continue to give to you
in the name of the Father
in the name of the Father,
and of the Son
and of the Son,
and of the Holy Spirit.
and of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It will be forever. Or I'll never fall in love. The restless world like this is. Love has ended before it's begun. And too many lives seem to prove that the warmth of the sun, when I give my heart, give my heart, it will be complete, completely. For I am
John, once again, you may kiss your bride. That's good. And let me turn and face your guest, if you will. Allow me the privilege and the honor of presenting to you once again, Mr. and Mrs. John Sketchner.
Tell us the happiest moment that you've ever had with the other person.
There's too many to count.
Oh.
And there's too many of the other kind too to count.
That wouldn't even dump water on it.
Gory. Yeah. We survived.
Sorry, we're hungry.
But more than that, we've grown.
Yeah.
My husband,
Not very much.
my friend, my best friend, my lover.
Don't go there. Corey.
And I'd be happy to spend another 25 with you.
All right.
Which are the most beautiful woman in the world? I love you forever.
All right. So beautiful.
Did you hear that, Mom?
Turn it up! Turn it up!
Bring my mic up.
I would do that when Paige hit the deck.
I think they've been very happy for the last 25 years, and I'm glad that they're renewed their vows for another 25. We love them all both very much.
They have as good a future as they've had a present, I guess.
You mean a past?
And the past.
We'd just like to thank you for becoming our friends through the years, and we look forward to being brothers and sisters in Christ. We thank you for your testimony for all of us to be loved and see. We thank you for the mercy and the prayers that you've given to our household. And we also pray for you, John. God bless you and bless you many times over through the years. Thanks.
Thanks.
We wish you all the best in the world, better than maybe some of the times in the first 25. And Carol and I owe you everything that we have together because you bring us together. So good luck in the future.
It's been great. I wish you another 25, 100, whatever you make. Just hang in there. Life's great.
I'm just real proud of you two for sticking it out through the roughs, and you've really been an example to a lot of people. And I know it's hard to do sometimes to stick together, and I'm just very proud of both of you, and I'm glad to have you in my life. And God bless your marriage for many, many more years to come.
Amen.
Amen.
Glad to be a part of your day. We just wish you another 25, just as happy.
Yes, we're really proud to be your neighbors and your friends and Christian brothers. You're a great Christian brother and Christian sister, and we appreciate the example you set with your kids and just with your daily lives, and it rubs off on us. But we really are happy to be part of this major achievement here, and we pray God will just continue to bless you. And we just thank you again for having us here.
You Jesus, we have overcome. You are God, you are holy, you are God, you are mighty, you are God, you are worthy of praise. You are God, you are holy, you are God, you are mighty, you are God, you are worthy of praise. There is no other name before you.
There's no other name.
We're singing on before your holiness. We need your spirit now to fill our lives. Through Jesus we